Hello, everyone. I'm Kev, and as always, I've got Steve with me. Welcome to the All Sports Betting Weekend Football Podcast. How are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Kev. We're really into the summer now, aren't we? Where only the say Scandinavian leagues and the other ones around the world that are on at the moment are taking place. There's not even an international tournament yet, so not an awful lot to go on right now, have we?
No, not at all. Quiet times, but that's no bad thing. We've gone through the busy periods. International football next week. But this week, just two leagues for us to concentrate on. We'll start with one of your specialities, which is in Scandinavia, in Norway, of course, where we've got a couple of matches on Saturday and the rest of the fixture list on Sunday. We'll touch on Saturday's matches in a minute, but we'll go straight through your bets, which all come on Sunday. And the first one you like is Alsund, I believe.
Yeah, you can get them. Excuse me. You can get them actually about even money just to win the game, Kev. And I think it's worth backing. If it was French football, I would take a -1/4 handicap because there's so many draws in French football. But it's not a draw league, Norway. You know, it's historically never really been a draw league. And this season, you know, it's been pretty similar, really. Teams go for the win. So you're usually better off backing the side straight on the nose when the price is good. And I think Alsund will have enough to see off Haugesund, who are just out of form. Yeah, Haugesund they've not scored a proper goal in any of their last 5 games. They scored 2 against Kristiansund, but both were actually own goals. So one of their own players hasn't really scored a goal for quite a long time for Haugesund. And they've got a few injuries. They're just not looking that threatening. And Alsund, meanwhile, they're a good team. They've been very good since the opening 2 weeks, scoring goals left, right, and centre, picking up results against big teams, and they've always been strong at home. Alsund. It just looks like a pretty obvious home win to me, probably to 0, the way Haugesund are playing. I would have Alsund about 1.65 or 1.7, so immediately getting quite a bit of value here. It just looks like one of those sort of comprehensive, comfortable-looking home wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice, solid-looking home win to get us up and running. The second match, which takes your fancy this week, Sarpsborg against Molde. Obviously, Sarpsborg riding high in 3rd place in the table. Very good at home. I do believe only the leaders, Rosenborg, are the only teams to have won at Sarpsborg. They take on a Molde side who are away from home, at least at Richie Benno's favourite side, Choo Choo Choo. You're going for a home win here, I believe.
Yeah, people will look at reputation here and think, oh, Molde look a big price, but the simple fact is Sarpsborg are the better team these days. They're probably the most likely side to catch Rosenborg if someone's going to beat them to the title. And 1.95 you can get on Sarpsborg to win, and I think they'll get the job done. Molde won the last 2 games, but neither of them have been particularly convincing, if you ask me. This is a much tougher challenge. Sarpsborg have got good quality all over the field. Every department you look at, they've got good all-round ability. From the centre of defence, where the likes of Sigurd Rodsted has been superb this year, up front where they've got Mortensen, Lindberg, etc., who find ways to get goals. And Molde also are outclassed tactically. I don't think Solskjaer is a particularly good tactical coach, and he's going to be up against one of the best minds in the league, in Geir Bakker here. So, I think there's so many duels that Sarpsborg are going to win out, and I expect a home win. Molde might get on the score sheet, but you're looking at sort of 2-0, 3-1, I would say, Kev. Again, something I'm quite happy to back.
Yeah, and I would imagine Cardiff fans would echo your sentiments on the baby-faced assassin and his lack of tactical nous. Your final bet this week, in Norway at least, 2 struggling sides against each other. Viking have already dropped off so far that they need binoculars to catch a side above them. But you're giving them a chance in their home game with Kristiansund.
Yeah, well, they're 7 points adrift of safety, Viking here. But, this is an absolute must-win game for them. I mean, you heard the term 6-pointer, don't you? I think it's overused in football, really. But this, certainly from Viking's point of view, it's a fucking 12-pointer. It's that massive for them. They've got Lillestrøm to play next week as well. So, they're playing the two teams nearest to them in the table. Viking are nowhere near as bad as their league position suggests, Kev. They've thrown away a lot of points this year, conceded late goals, and they've only really been battered, comprehensively beaten twice in 11 games. So, they're better than their league position suggests. They put up a good fight at Strømsgodset on Monday. They're definitely still, for me, the better side on paper. Kristiansund, a very limited team. They're all about sort of defence, keeping it tight as they can. Very boring sight to watch. You would not enjoy watching them, Kev, at all. They'd remind you a lot of the League Two crap that you've had to put up with over the last year or two. And it's an anti-football sort of thing. They'll graft hard, they'll fight hard, but it's Viking who've got the extra quality, like left winger Samuel Adegbenro, who I just think the extra intensity of the hosts. If they don't win this one, they are in big trouble. The manager, some might say he's under a bit of pressure now. I think they've got to stick with him. The resources he's been given and virtually nothing compared to previous ones here. I just think everyone's going to be going in the same direction. They showed good fight on Monday, coming from 4-0 down to 4-2. So they're not giving up yet, Viking. It's such a must-win game. I can't imagine them not getting the 3 points. They're the better team, really, as long as they convert their chances and don't make silly mistakes. Back them on a -75 handicap, because if they win, I think it's going to end up quite comfortable. They beat Odd here 3-0 earlier in the season, and something like that again. So -75 at 2.05.
Absolutely. So 3 home sides for Steve in Norway on Sunday. While I've got you, I'll just grab your thoughts on the leaders on Sunday. Rosenborg, 4 games without a win now, but they do face sides struggling in the league in Strømsgodset. Is it a time that the leaders get back to winning ways?
Well, now we're in guesswork territory, because we've been waiting 4 games for them. In fact, we've been waiting all season for them to actually fire properly, and it's just not happened. So, I can't go near Rosenborg right now. Sooner or later, they will turn it on, that's for sure. Quite who against, I'm not entirely convinced it's going to be against Strømsgodset, who played their best match of the season on Monday night, but then they also got knocked out in the cup against their local derby rivals in midweek. So, who knows which version of Strømsgodset is going to turn up. It could be a good or a bad version. Rosenborg, they're just not looking good in the final third of the field enough. Nicholas Bentner is not getting the job done enough. To be fair, the service he's getting isn't ideal at the moment either. That's what's letting Rosenborg down. They've not scored enough goals for my liking since the opening 2 games. 6 of their 16 goals were scored in the first two rounds, and they've only scored 10 since then. So it's not really enough, is it, for a side that are expected to cakewalk the league? My best guess is Rosenborg win by 1 goal, 1-0, 2-1.
Yeah, Nicholas Bentner's not really got the job done since he stuck Paddy Power underpants on, has he? I want to catch your thoughts on one other game as well, Steve, which is the late game on Sunday. Top of the table clash, 4th placed Odd host 2nd placed Brann. Will there be a winner in that one?
Brann are really defying expectations at the moment. Everyone expected this sort of second season syndrome where they'd dropped down a bit after a great year last year following promotion, but they look as good as anyone to challenge Rosenborg right now for the title. But I've always thought Brann, they're a home team. They're really, really good at home. You would never bet against them at home. But away from home, I'm never as convinced by Brann. So, Odd, I've got to say, they're an odd team. Just quite literally, they are. They live up to their name. They didn't even have a single shot last week against Sandefjord. Not a single shot, either on target or off target. Now, that's terrible. That's like, a side that's expected to challenge in the top 4, going away from home against a relegation candidate and not registering a single shot. Now, when you've got 11 men on the field for the whole game, I just think that's just terrible. And that's the problem with Odd right now. They're too inconsistent. You don't know which version you're going to get of them. They're usually quite good at home. I couldn't I tell you, this is one of the hardest games of the weekend to call, Kev. I couldn't put money on anyone, right? Maybe a draw, 1-1 or something, but you could make a case for either side. To be honest, it really just depends which version of odd ball club turn up.
Yeah, fair enough. Just a quick word on Saturday's matches. 2 games, Tromsø against Vålerenga, Stabæk against Lillestrøm. Anything stand out there that we should be aware of?
Well, obviously, it's a long way up north for Vålerenga to go. Tromsø, good home side, but again, they're not taking the chances. They're really missing Runar Espejord, who might actually be out for the whole season now. He might not even play a single minute this year. They're really young, talented striker. Maybe he might come back in September, but they're clearly missing him up front. They're missing a clinical finisher up front. So I think that could be, if Tromsø take their chances, they could win, but you're looking at like a 1-1 draw. Stabæk Lillestrøm, that is a derby game, an Oslo derby game. And it's obviously, I think this will be a physical encounter, a bit brutal, direct football. And, passions could run high, maybe a red card sort of fixture. That could be a draw as well. 1-1, maybe even 0-0 if it really does cancel each other out. And the other game I didn't mention, Sogndal against Sandefjord. Don't bother watching that one. It's a no goal scorer contender. That'll be a pretty awful game of football, Kev.
Fair enough. Thanks for your thoughts on Norway, Steve. Let's head across the Atlantic, right the way across to the MLS. Now, we're having to dodge a few international call-ups in MLS this week, which makes betting a little bit difficult. Bruce Arena has gathered his America squad together quite early, I see, and that's a bit of a pain for us who would like a bit of settledness to the sides that we back. But nevertheless, we've got a full round of fixtures list. We'll avoid the Friday night game because by the time most people listen to this, it'll have been and gone. And we'll start off with Saturday, 2 games on Sky. First one of those is the opening game, New York City against Philadelphia Union. And as luck would have it, you've got an interest for us.
Yeah, the problem here with these international call-ups is you really got to do your research. You don't know necessarily who's in or out. And the other problem is there's been quite a few midweek rounds recently. So there's often some weird sort of random rotations that we're going to have to deal with. So actually, in a lot of cases, if you want to be sure about what team you're betting on, you've got to wait until the lineups are announced. So you've got to be betting in the last half hour before kickoff if you want to be truly safe. Right now, I'm sure there'll be some picks that we have, and it will be affected by team selection. So I'm kind of just going with general style. In New York City, Philadelphia, it should be an over match. I think over 3 goals is my pick for the game. There could be a bit of rotation from New York City after playing in midweek, but it was so noticeable how open they were against the Revolution. It's clear New York City, when they play someone they perceive as weaker than them, they're just going to go for it. They're expected to win, and they'll go for the win. They're not going to bunker down. They sometimes play defensive, don't they, against some of the bigger teams away from home or even at home. But they won't be defensive here. Philadelphia, they're going to be the team perhaps on the back foot, but they've had a whole week of rest, so perhaps they can come here and sort of offer a bit of better freshness, physique. And New York City are always vulnerable at the back if they're in gung-ho mode, don't you? So maybe CJ Sapong or someone like that can bag a goal for Philadelphia. You're looking probably at a home win, aren't you, Kev? But, you wouldn't rule out a 2-2 draw again, would you? Philadelphia haven't been that bad this year. Well, not well in recent weeks anyway. So I would say 3-1 sort of thing, 2-2, maybe 2-1 at worst for a push. So I think over 3 goals is the way to go.
Just put our minds at rest, Steve. Is there any concerns about it being an early kickoff? Obviously, 1 p.m. local time in New York. Would that be an issue? Is there any sort of correlation or anything which would suggest that it may be higher or lower scoring at that time of day?
I've looked into this before, and both teams are on the same time zone, so I don't think it will affect them that much. It shouldn't affect sportsmen that early. I mean, think about it. All the NFL games on the Eastern Seaboard kick off at that time, don't they? The only concern is if it's really hot, but I think it's going to be about sort of 23, 24 degrees. It's not that bad, is it? A bit of wind forecast for this game, but look, wind can do anything, can't it? You can gain goals from it, or you can sort of reduce goals. But by and large, I always say, as long as the wind isn't any more than 30, 35 kilometers per hour, ignore it. I think if you get in towards 35, 40, it's different then, isn't it? But then you might get a case of where one team has the wind in one half, and you don't want that situation. But 25 kilometers per hour, it's about what, 18, 20 miles an hour. That's not that bad. It's a bit windy. I wouldn't want to be playing golf out in it, Kev. But I don't think it will affect the game too much.
No, indeed. I've heard about your golf. You don't really want to play in no wind, do you? Let alone with the wind. Having been to Yankee Stadium, it will take a right old wind to get through the stands behind the plate, so to speak, there. So I don't think the wind will necessarily be an issue. I think you're right there. We'll crack on with the second Sky game, Steve. I know we're missing out a game, but we'll concentrate on the live games for now. Second one being Vancouver Whitecaps against Atlanta United. Without doubt, the visitors are the best side to watch in MLS. But they take on a decent Canadian side here, don't they? So have you got an edge on this one?
I don't think Atlanta will lose the game. We've time and time again this year, they've proven they've gone away from home to some of the most difficult locations and they've got results. They've not necessarily won games, but I mean, look, they've gone to Seattle, Toronto, Portland, and places like Real Salt Lake when RSL weren't that bad, and they've got results away from home. So why can't they go to Vancouver and get one? It's a long way up there. I'll say that for them. Maybe they might be a little bit distracted by that, but look, they don't seem the sort of team that. Look, their coach is kind of he's not American, is he? So he's coaching it in a different way to the typical American style. Every match matters to Atlanta. It feels like you get some Eastern Conference teams go to the West and they don't really care as much because they know it's just one game against a non-conference team. But Atlanta just seem to be up for every single match. If I had to put my money somewhere, it would be them on the plus half handicap. Vancouver are a really strange old team. They do tend to miss. They lack a good striker. If Freddie, whatever his name, Montero isn't in good form. I would say Atlanta not to lose. But I'm not personally gonna bet on anything in this game. I know you like the overs.
Yeah, absolutely. As ever, when Atlanta plays, Steve, 6 of the last 8 over 3.5 goals. Well, they've contained 4 or more goals. Goals come along. Vancouver had a really, really weird game last week against DC United. Lost it 1-0, hit the crossbar about 26 times. Bill Hamid had, as he often does whenever I go against him, had an absolute worldie of a game. And on another day, that could have been sort of 9-1 Vancouver, and I'm not even exaggerating there. It was a ridiculous game. I would imagine Vancouver are going to get plenty of chances here, and if they've sawn the crossbars off to get the right angle for the ball to go in, then you would imagine that they'll find the back of the net. Atlanta don't keep clean sheets. That's one thing this Tata Martino side does not do, is keep clean sheets. But the reason they don't keep clean sheets is there's so many players at the other end of the pitch trying to get the ball and go on the offensive. There is no better player in form, at least, than Miguel Almiron in Major League Soccer right now, is there? He's absolutely on fire, and him alone could cover a 2.75 goal line, let alone the rest of the players on this pitch. Do you have him as one of the best players in the league?
Right now, he's the best player in the league, I think.
Yeah, he is for me too.
And when they get Martinez back, them two combined are absolutely 2 top quality players. I think the manager's really done well to bring these 2 in. He knows what he wants, doesn't he? He wants technical players. They're probably already the best technical team in the league, near enough, or certainly one of the top 3. So that's his style, and he's got the players for it. Almiron he's got a hell of a left foot, hasn't he? He smashes the net when he, you know what I mean? It's unstoppable goals that he's had.
Yeah, absolutely. The Houston keeper did well to get out of the way of the 3 he scored against him the other week. Otherwise, he'd have gone in the back of the net with them. I agree. Championed their credentials all season long. They're still my idea of the winners of the MLS. And I'm with you. I don't think they'll lose this game either. I can see this game being sort of 3-1, 4-1 Atlanta, or if they're sloppy, 2 each, something like that. So I'm definitely on over 2.75 goals there. Very much the case. So let's go on to your next bet, Steve. It follows a little later on, or in the early hours of Sunday morning, if you're in the UK. 2 good sides to watch, actually. Montreal Impact, New York Red Bulls. Home side for you, though, and I can understand why.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hopefully a case of ring that bell, Kev. you look at New York Red Bull. Since when have they ever been a backable prospect away from home? Certainly, this season they've lost their last 5 on the road, and it should have been 6, shouldn't it? Because Atlanta absolutely hammered them in the opening game. They fluked that one. Look, the Red Bulls aren't very good away from home. They're not very good at home either, if you ask me. They were very lucky to draw against Toronto. Yes, they beat the Revolution last week, but I don't think that's an awful lot to shout home about. But Montreal are that one of them weird sides. I sometimes don't get them right, but I think that 4-1 win last week. The tail's going to be up, isn't it? Hopefully they got enough to get the job done against the Red Bulls here. I'm going to take them on a -1/4 handicap just in case of a draw. But I mean, looking at this, 2.5 to win, that looks a really massive price against a side that just do not do the business away from home. And it's just for me, it's an obvious pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that since that 4-1 win, they've progressed in the Canadian Cuppy, whatever you call it, thingy-majiggy against Vancouver in midweek too. So they should be on a high in Montreal, shouldn't they? Ignacio Piatti, another one of the players that's lighting up the league right now. And if anyone had any question marks about the quality and the influence Dax McCarty has on the MLS, you've only got to look at New York Red Bulls in the last 2 seasons and then watch them this season, haven't you? They're an absolute shambles without him. His loss is very much the Fire's gain. One more bet for you on Saturday night, and it is in the Dallas Real Salt Lake game. Thankfully, for those of us in the UK, it's a 1 a.m. kickoff, so it's not too bad because some of these games can be pretty late. And you're going to chance the home side again.
Yeah, they've let me down the last 2 matches, but I don't really know how. They battered San Jose, lost 1-0, and really they were the better team against Houston, and that ended 0-0. So the problem is they can't score goals. Forget about the Chicago Fire defeat away from home. They only played about 2 or 3 first teamers in that. But they're lacking goals, Dallas. That's the problem. And one big problem is a guy up front, Christian Coleman, who he's absolutely terrible right now. His form, he's shite. If Dallas had a really top quality striker, they would really be romping the Western Conference for me, because everything else about their team is spot on. But if Urruti goes off form a little bit, and he isn't in great nick right now, Urruti, then the goals can dry up. But one big positive for Dallas is the return of Mauro Diaz, their key playmaker. I didn't expect him back in the team so quickly. In fact, I had him down on my spreadsheet injured until the end of June, but he's back a month early, so it's a big boost for them. Great playmaker, really good on the set pieces. I don't know whether he'll start this game or not, but I'd imagine he'd be in contention. Look, they should have enough for Real Salt Lake. I mean, they're another terrible away team. Terrible full stop. I mean, we know their squad's had loads of injury problems recently, so it's not going to help them playing on a short week of rest, is it? Especially when you just got battered 5-1 at Houston. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a 5-1 battering, because Dallas don't tend to smash sides. They love a 2-0 win to Dallas historically, so I could see this being a sort of a 2-0, 3-0 sort of performance. I would normally say Dallas would sort of sleepwalk through this game and get the job done, but I don't think they can afford to sleepwalk at the moment, can they? They've got to put a performance after no winning 4, so they're going to be motivated to put on a show. Going to take the -1 Asian handicap. If they can't win this, then they've got some serious problems, if you ask me. Real Salt Lake, they're one of the worst teams in MLS at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, as Houston proved the other night. We've skipped a few games. I won't cover all of them, but there is one that I want to grab your thoughts on. Why shouldn't we back Los Angeles Galaxy at DC United?
That's a good question. I think, I guess the only answer I can give you is it's not usually a great percentage play to back away teams in MLS. This is less than a 20% matches usually end in away wins. And the LA Galaxy, they're having to go from the West Coast to the East Coast. The matches start in, I think it's 7 p.m. Eastern. So, yeah, sometimes sides going to the East against a team like DC United, they can be a bit sloppy, not focused as much. So that's the only real reasons I can think of. DC United, Wow, look, what do you make of them? I mean, they've lost 4 of their last 6, and the 2 they won, they should never have won, should they? I mean, Atlanta and Vancouver, the only reason they won those games was Bill Hamid. I guess that's another reason not to back LA potentially, because you could argue he's the best performing keeper in the league at the moment. Look, I don't rate DC United, but yes, maybe this is the sort of game they could surprise everyone and get a result. They beat LA Galaxy here a couple of years ago. I remember that one. No one fancied them. I mean, do you see LA winning, or is there going to be a shocker?
I'd like to take on DC United. There's something in the back of my mind telling me not to take them on. Galaxy are in form though, aren't they? They've won the last 3. They're unbeaten in a while. I look at the DC United side, like you say, the last 2 games, they'd never deserved to win the 2 games that they won. The last 3 games at home, they've lost them all and they haven't even scored in them. I mean, every way I look at this, it's an away side that should be backed. But like you say, backing away sides isn't necessarily the profitable way to do it in this league. So I'm going to have to think long and hard about this one, Steve. It might be that come game time, I can't resist, but I certainly couldn't put anyone off. I really couldn't.
Away from home, it's difficult. It is. I mean, you got to pick the right moment at the right time, I think, if you're backing away sides. I mean, I personally almost blanket ban myself on betting away teams in MLS. It's a kind of a rule book I've got here. But, I mean, I suppose you got to check team news here. I'm not sure if Galaxy are missing anyone. Maybe Yessi Zardes is on international duty. I'm not sure if he's been called up. His form hasn't been good enough, if you ask me, Kev. I don't know about you.
If he's missing, that only makes me like Galaxy more, Steve. Not his greatest fan, I have to say. And like you say, he hasn't really made an impact in this Galaxy side anyway. Even if he has left, it really isn't going to leave too much of a hole, I don't think. But you are right. Do check the team news for Galaxy. They are the kind of side, particularly with Brucey having left there last season. He might have called a couple of players up for international duty, might need that he's quite fond of. So still can't put anyone off DC United, but we will move on to cover 2 more games. The leaders in both conferences, Steve. They're both away from home this weekend. Toronto FC are up first. They head to New England Revolution in an Eastern Conference clash. Whether they alternate or whether they don't, whether Giovinco's fit or whether he's not, Toronto FC just do not lose football matches.
Yeah, look, Toronto are starting to become a really top. They're arguably the top team right now in MLS because they've got a massive squad that can cope with these absences. They're based on defence and midfield rather than everyone talks about Giovinco and Altidore, but actually it's the defence and midfield that do the business. So you wouldn't bet against them, but at the same time you wouldn't really want to bet against New England in Foxborough. Again, it's not a place anyone really likes to go, but they don't really make much appeal around about the even money mark, I think, in some places, New England. I mean, you wouldn't be backing them that price against Toronto, would you?
No, they are incredibly short. I must admit, when I looked at the fixtures for this round of games, that was the price that jumped out as me as a stinker, really. It's really is a terrible price, it must be said. Obviously, we do need to make reference of the fact that Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore are on international duty for this game, so they'll both miss out. But by all accounts, Sebastian Giovinco is fit, as is Tosin Ricketts, who went off injured in midweek, but he seems to be okay for this game. We're not sure about that one, I think it's fair to say. So we'll head to the Western Conference, where the leaders, Houston Dynamo, shambles away from home, it must be said. Does that make Seattle Sounders a decent price at 1.80?
I think Seattle will win this game. They're both teams played in midweek, but Seattle rested players, and Houston have had 2 pretty. Well, they've gone for it the last 2. I mean, Dallas last weekend away from home, then they played full strength team pretty much against RSL. Now they're going out west to Seattle, and they're terrible away. I think nearly every point that Houston have picked up has been at home. So they're certainly not top of the table because of their away form, are they, Kev? So, I'd imagine Seattle will win the game, but they're a bit of a vulnerable team, aren't they, Seattle? A couple of 1-0 wins, they're scratching around a lot. So you wouldn't want to trust them at odds on, maybe. I don't know. What do you think here?
Well, they're waiting for Ladero to really kick into last season's form, aren't they? I think that's the real thing with them. He shows flashes, doesn't he? But he doesn't really ever convince, and that's the thing. I guess the other issue that we've got to make note of for those that are on my line are thinking that Seattle could be a nice price. Clint Dempsey's away with the United States of America, and for some reason, God knows, unknown to me, Jordan Morris has been called up into that international squad as well. So America can't be that short of strikers, surely. But it appears that is the case. Obviously, DeMarcus Beasley's left Houston Dynamo for the same reason. He's off with America. And they've got an injury doubt over Ramel Kyoto, haven't they? So they do look short-handed to me, Houston.
Both teams are short-handed here, aren't they? So this actually might be maybe an under game. You could look at under 2.5 as a value price for this fixture. It does feel like a 1-0 Seattle, doesn't it? Something like that. So
the last two matches at CenturyLink have finished 1-0 to them as well, haven't they? And really and truly, when they went ahead last week against Portland, they went ahead quite early in the game, didn't they? You never really got the impression a second one was going to come, did you? It was a weird game of football, actually. It was almost like both sides were content for it to finish 1-0. And
well, Seattle, you're right. Why the second goal wasn't coming? Because they didn't go looking for one, really, did they? They didn't want one. They were happy to defend on the 1-0 lead, and I think that's what would happen here again. If they got the lead, they would probably just defend it. And when Morris is, you can say what you like about Morris. He's quite a big player for them. He does add quite a lot to the side. Doesn't he? Misses chances, doesn't he? But when he plays on the wing, I think he's quite creative for Seattle. But you watch. I bet you Ladero plays better without Dempsey around him. I think that's been a big problem for Seattle. What you remember, Ladero won them the MLS Cup without Dempsey around. He loves being the main man, the man everyone passes to. And when Dempsey's on the field, he misses out a bit. He doesn't take as many free kicks or the penalties. Now he can be the main man, can't he? Again.
Absolutely fair point. Yeah, a great point. Well made. Just one more game I want to cover before we finish, Steve. We'll cover them because they're second in the Eastern Conference, and that is the Chicago Fire game away at Orlando City. Orlando ended this slump that they mysteriously embarked themselves on when they beat DC United, but I'm not sure we can look too much into that, can we? Is Chicago Fire worth backing, or is the Dax McCarty effect going to go against them this week with him being on international duty?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? McCarty's a big player. You know what? You could do worse than back in Chicago plus a quarter in this, because they've had about a 10-day rest. I think they should be in perfect physical condition. Orlando have been playing matches left, right, and centre. They've not been looking that great. And I watched a bit of that DC United game in midweek, and United could have easily got something out of the match. I thought Orlando weren't that great. I think the Fire, I think they'll knuckle down, defend quite hard, and. I could see them nicking a sneaky away win perhaps here. But again, is it a great percentage play back in a team plus a quarter in MLS? I don't know. I think you've got to respect Orlando. It's a tough place to go. Nice crowd. So I would leave it alone, but I wouldn't put anyone off back in Chicago.
Yeah, 4 wins on the trot for Chicago alongside Toronto FC. They are the form side in MLS right now. That's pretty much it, Steve, I think. I know there's 2 matches in MLS that we've not covered, but they're both low-key games, so we'll keep it at that, I think. We will return next week with more football action. Those that like their cricket, keep an eye out for our Champions Trophy pods every single day for the next week. But thanks for your thoughts as always, Steve. Best of luck with all of those bets, and I shall see you again this time next week.
Thanks very much, Kev. Best of luck with your selections as well this weekend, and we will catch everyone for the next football podcast next weekend. And watch out because I think the Confederations Cup is starting soon. We'll be covering that as well. So take care, everyone. See you next week.